Welcome to Action Hour. I'm your host, Lindsay Baker. Today I'm speaking to my friend, Thea Perera, a filmmaker, activist, and storyteller. Thea collaborates with other artists and activists to transform her life's passion into powerful messages about compassion for all beings, from graphic novels like Pippa and the Major to films like Paul and Trisha, exploring gender fluidity, and upcoming Mermaid tackling childhood bullying. Thea's stories inspire and advocate, giving a voice to those who need it most. Watch now and join the journey for change.
Thea, I want to ask you right off the bat, I know unfortunately Adam has having some technical issues. He's overseas, was not able to make it. Why did you both feel this was so important to make this graphic novel?
We wanted to create a story that had humor, but was also based in some real historical truth, which is actually based on my family history. There were feminists back in the 1800s. Pippa is a feminist. You see her, she's behind me. And there were people that did not eat animals. There were people that were trying to fight on behalf of Native American rights. And we just see a lot of what all the horrible things that, or the things that were not happening in terms of all the colonialism and taking the land and all these things. But we rarely saw actual, characters that are depicted of doing positive things for animals and for gender and for women. And I think that that's why we wanted to create this story, is to have some humor, real truths, but also depict real people that were living back in those times.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about how it tied into your family and how you happened to come to know that there were these activists back then. Did you do some study of it, or how did that all come about for you to make that connection?
Yes. So basically, my ancestor, Anthony Thatcher, founded the town of Yarmouth. He was one of the founders in 1653 in Yarmouth. That's on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. We did a lot of research together, and we found that there was another relative of mine that had fought on behalf of the British against the French, and then was friends and was supporting a lot of the people in the local tribe. And so the local tribe actually fought with my ancestor on behalf of the British in Quebec against the French. And so we kind of wove that into the story. There's also Black Bellamy, who's a real pirate. The Widja, his ship went down off of Cape Cod, I believe, around Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard. And so we kind of wove in all those real characters and to create a beautiful storyline. There's also, there's something for everybody in this. Because I'm an animal activist, Pippa is a feminist. I am a feminist. And she's somebody that is fighting against the fur trade. She stops the fur trade. She shuts down this fur fashion show in a really fun way. And then there's also the whaling. She shuts the whaling down because she becomes the mayor of the town. So she shuts that down, and it's kind of fun. The world's first selfie, which is a portrait, a guy doing a portrait of a woman. Right. And so she so it's using comedy and real history to make a point that's not hitting people over the head. And I think as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, as a writer, that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I am doing that, is to have an impact in making people think through entertainment. And then they can kind of think, oh my gosh, we need to stop whaling. The ocean plastic, or what's going on with the whaling, connect the dots. So you did have characters back then. There's one of our very significant characters is this fabulous gay man. Listen, there were a lot of LGBTQ plus representation hundreds of years ago. Men were always playing women in plays. There was a lot of that. Most of that community was in the closet. But so I think it's about normalizing those. We're normalizing those stories today, having a lot of the support for inclusivity and diversity, but it's also allowing those stories to come out from hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, we have here the log line. I was going to go into that a little bit, but you went ahead and went through that for us in such an eloquent way. But let me just go back to Adam for a second.
So Adam has always been an animal. He's always been an advocate. He's a big supporter of Sea Shepherd. And when he was in his 20s, he actually was working near a slaughterhouse, an abattoir in the UK. And the sounds of the animals being slaughtered and just all that, I think he had to go and also inspect it for a job or something. But he's talked about the visceral fear, the horror show that he witnessed. And so he made that decision to not eat animals anymore. And so creating this book was really a joy for both of us. And coming together and Adam has his sense of and his knowledge of history is uncanny. He is incredible. Like, I mean, we would drive in Europe and he'd be like, tell me how many soldiers died in the Second World War on this field and the Germans and this and that. I mean, his sense of history is amazing. He is the major and I'm Pippa. So we really jumped into that story to celebrate. And it's just been so much fun. One of the local bookstores on the Cape actually has been selling some of our novels, the book. And it's just been a great touchstone and it's brought us together. So we've got the book, Pip and the Major, 18th century love story, loosely based on historical facts. Google Pip and the Major, it's on Amazon. We've been selling a ton of books there. And if you're on the Cape, there's Parnassus bookstore, but the safest place to buy it always is Amazon.
You also worked as an activist on another cause. So I'm talking about Mermaid. So let's watch those.
Larger concept through a child's lens. I think you opened up this conversation to the audience as well, and to audiences who wouldn't necessarily be super well versed or knowing that much about transgender nature, and you do this very well through the eyes of this child. So you did a wonderful job, and I know that this film will mean so much to so many people.
Short captured such raw and guttural emotion throughout the entire piece, and it was amazing. The story is a lot that I think a lot of people can relate to, and that's what makes it amazing. It seems like this team and this creator put so much passion into this project, and I felt all the issues they were trying to portray.
So I love that whole world. I always say if it weren't for the drag artists, they are just some of the most interesting, the coolest people ever. And the fact that it takes a lot of courage to really strike out and be who you really are. And especially with all the different obstacles that are presented in this very complex modern culture. So to wave your flag and be who you really are, I'm a big proponent of that. Still, and we're still getting a lot more, angels to come on board to support the film. But we're moving steadily forward into to putting together our cast. We're working with a casting director. And it is a testament of coming together. It takes a village to make a movie. It takes a village to support, in this movie, a child that it's a little boy, tough boy that wants to be a mermaid and is clear that they are somebody else. And dad who doesn't, dad doesn't really understand what's going on with his child. And Bill, the father, has this beautiful journey. But it's all these characters that come together. Pepper, who is the fabulous black gay man that lives in this gorgeous house, who's now circling the drain because his partner died. He used to own this drag club and is there. So it's their friendship. And they come together. Pepper becomes the mother that Cassie never really had, gives Cassie the tail to become the mermaid that Cassie truly wants to be. And Dad gets to really embrace and see his child as how she wants to be. So it's a beautiful story. And we're getting the towns that are coming together of supporting the film on the Cape is pretty amazing.
The other project, Paul and Trisha. Let's talk about that, if you would.
Yes.
And I think I have a picture here. Actually, I have a little clip. Why don't I play that?
As an artist, All Whitehead interpreted the world around him.
Here we are, the playground. Welcome to my world.
Creating dazzling works of art for legends in their time.
Over the course of my career, I've worked with some really great people, like Peter Gabriel, Peter Hamill from Van de Graaff, Genesis, art directed with John Lennon and the Beatles.
But despite his success, The one thing Paul couldn't express
You learn very early on that what you do for a living as an artist doesn't conform with most people's norms.
was his true self.
So they think you're a weirdo.
Until he
To me, the actual transition takes place when I put the wig on.
discovered her.
Power. Realize your power. Go where you wanna go.
I realized she's an identity. I want to be the prettiest me that I can be with all the physical handicaps I've got. So without thinking what you're doing, you just start work. I have this ambition to be the transgender Bob Ross.
Paul Whitehead.
I discovered that I didn't fit into a box.
Trisha Van Cleef.
By not fitting into that box,
Two people enjoined together by art.
she was going to upset people.
After a lifetime of artistic achievement,
As an artist, as a transgender person,
he learned his masterpiece
it's not my purpose in life to make other people feel comfortable.
may have been herself.
My purpose in life is to make me feel comfortable.
Paul and Trisha. The art of fluidity.
Wow, that looks like another amazing project. Fia, you are so talented. And I know
Thank you, my dear. Tell that to more of the Netflix producers, because I need to make at least $1 million a year, because I have a lot of farm animals that I want to rescue.
Yeah. So before we go on to all your activism, let's talk a little bit about the film. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Thank you, Lindsay. So Paul and Trisha, The Art of Fluidity, Paul Whitehead and Trisha Van Cleef are very dear friends of mine. And I met them through Adam. Adam, how the whole thing started was that Adam was actually, during COVID, was Trisha and Paul's art agent. And they had also published a book of all Paul's work and everything. And they were going to go on the road with a pop-up show, and they had these wonderful 3 animated shorts that Adam's son Ben Fisk and his best friend Jordan McLaughlin did together. They're both amazing filmmakers and animators. And so they had these 3 wonderful shorts about Paul's life. And so Adam said, well, why don't you take the shorts and see if you can weave it into maybe a short film with the shorts. And then once I started looking and really getting to know Paul and Trish, I realized this is not a short film, it's a feature doc. And I really wanted to explore the fluidity of their gender and the artwork, and how just the differences and also the likenesses and the synergy of the two. And the statement really that they say is, and that's something we all should live by, our purpose in life is to make ourselves feel comfortable, not anybody else.
I love that. But I do want to stop you for 1 second, because you speak, I just want to make sure I understand and the audience understands. You
Yes.
speak of it as they,
Yes.
like it's 2 separate people. And so can you go into that a little more? Because I know that I understand, but I don't know that will confuse some.
Yes.
Yeah.
I understand there's a lot of, it seems to be kind of this fluid matrix of pronouns and identity that sometimes confuses people. Paul Whitehead found out when he was in his 50s that there was Trisha Van Cleef. And you'll see that in the movie. So there was that other identity. I refer to Paul and Trisha as they. But Paul has a great sense of humor and says, he identifies as he, and when he's Trisha as she. But I just say they, because I see there's Paul and Trisha, 2 together, is the duality together. So they are gender fluid, which is under the trans umbrella, which means that, back in the day, they would consider, or they'd say cross-dressing, but we don't really say cross-dressing because it's part of that identification of being two genders together coexisting in one body, almost non-binary. But Paul and Trisha they're able to be gender fluid and go back and forth between Paul and Trisha. It's wonderful. It made it very challenging for me to really pare it down, because there was so much material that I wanted to explore, but I wanted to keep the spine of the fact that you can be 2 people. You can identify as both without having to physically change your gender if you don't feel comfortable with doing that. So you can be both genders in the same body without physically doing anything. It's how you identify and feel. And that's the other thing too, is that everybody's interpretation, how they identify, is their business. It's
Right.
no one else's choice or business. And so that's one thing I really want to impress upon people watching, just to support other people. You might not understand when somebody wants to transition or they identify as a different gender or two, but allow them, just sit back and go, well, how would I want people to treat me if that's how I were feeling? So it's a very personal thing in terms of how people identify. So I hope that brings a little clarity. I know
It does. It does. I think
it's been a real eye-opening experience for me, and just the couples I have met that have supported each other, whether their partners are transitioning, and the love and the acceptance and the complexities that they've had to kind of grapple with themselves as they support their partner. And it really is a testament of love and acceptance. That's what I have in Mermaid. It's I see you, I love you for who you are, as opposed to being just being negative and not accepting and discrimination. So that's the positive. It's a very positive film, and it also deals with their artwork. There are over 250 pieces of artwork in the film, and and Paul and Tricia just want to say that anything people see in the film, you can actually buy.
wow,
I know because I have.
there's some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, and up with your activism, I know you're involved with so many different organizations, and that's actually how we met, through activism. So why don't you talk a little bit about some of the ones that you're working on right now?
Oh, well, I've got a little poster here that you see that?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Some burrows. I can go back, keep them wild there. I'm a big proponent of saving our wild horses, but yes, I have been involved with animal activism for years now. I worked on a huge campaign with the Humane Society to stop the Canadian seal hunt years ago, and that's how I really started getting into the activism, as I saw a sealer about to club a 2-week-old baby seal, and I just flipped out. And I just moved to LA. I'd optioned the script, and I saw that, and I immediately contacted PETA, IFA, and the Humane Society. And the Humane Society said, we're going to bring you on board as an activist and outreach coordinator. And they said, go out and get restaurants to boycott Canadian seafood, to put pressure on the Canadian fisheries to not, to stop going out and employing fishermen that are killing the seals, and those that are selling cod and other seafood, but are also sealers, have permits. So I really got involved with that campaign for years, and I recruited a lot of very famous chefs that said, we're not going to buy Canadian seafood. We had a whole app and all that stuff. And unfortunately, the seal hunt is still going on, but the numbers have decreased significantly because, let's face it, people don't want to be eating seal meat. They don't want to be eating seal meat. The younger people in Canada don't want to go out and kill seals. It's primarily a lot of the Inuit people that are doing it. And so I also, as a storyteller, I use that as an opportunity to go up to Canada. I also wrote a movie about it called The Front. That is it's a love story that takes place on the backdrop of the seal hunt. It's very much of it's an activist, it's a documentary film within a love story with a lot of action. And that's a movie that should get made. So if there's any executive producers that have a lot of money, that's a great movie. That all takes place up in Newfoundland. As the cause director in every movie or every show I direct, you'll have a hat and I'll be like, all right, everybody, let's give to this. What can we do now to stop, whether it's anti-poaching, the poaching issues in Africa for that organization, whether it's giving to Direct Action. I really love what they're doing, different organizations to support the equality and to advocate for animals.
There's always a way to help. Thank you so much, Fia. We need more people like you in the world.
Oh, ditto. Thank you so much, Lindsay.
To contact Fia Perera, go to pererapictures.com. Thank you for watching Action Hour. This is your host, Lindsay Baker. We are streaming live on Unchained TV.